Is it going?
Yes.
Okay, today the plague of livestock. As I've said before, if this is coming, if God is doing this in His personality, just as He did in the day of Moses to deliver His people, so is He doing it today, because God likes to do things in the same fashion so that people will know that this is God. So how is the plague of livestock lining up with how God delivered Israel from Egypt in the day of Moses? This is what it is. Livestock was the riches. It was the money, that caused, money was the cattle, or cattle was the money that caused everything to be like it is today. And just as the liberals are dependent on the money of the conservatives, just like in that day, the Egyptians were dependent on the cattle and of the servants of Israel. They depended on the servants to take care of their cattle, to milk their cows, to brush down their horses, and take care of their donkeys and their sheep and their goats and all that kind of thing. Okay, because they were slaves. Literally, they were slaves in Egypt, just as the black people were slaves in this country for over 100 years. I think they were slaves over for 200 years, and I have relatives of those slaves who were slaves. Okay, so, and I probably know more about it than some black folks, and others probably know more about it than me, but I mean, that's not the important point here. The important point is that God is doing this in the same fashion. Okay, and here's how He's doing it, okay? So stay with me for about the next 10 minutes. I'll try to keep this short as I can, because this one is a little bit, this one goes to the in-depth information. I found a lot more in this one than I did any one of the ones before. And it seems like the more I go, the more I find, okay? And this is where it is. Exodus chapter 9. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go unto Pharaoh and tell him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews," that's Israel. Okay, "let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, and I will hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field." Now listen to this. "Upon the horses, upon the asses," that's the donkey, "upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep, there shall be a very grievous murrain," disease. "And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is in the children of Israel. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did this thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. And Pharaoh sinned, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelis dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened again, and he did not let the people go." Okay, that's what I was saying. See, it wasn't just on the cows. It was on the horses and the sheep and the donkeys, and it was literally over every kind of animal that they owned. Okay. Now the Lord hid this. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Okay. Now I got a couple of notes I want to go through with you to show you how this is lining up. Okay. And this is where God has said to them, "This is mine. The power of all that you have belongs to me. Israel is my children, I'm taking them back. Notice he said there is a point set time for this. And even though they didn't recognize it, the Bible says there the heart of Pharaoh was hardened. Even though they didn't recognize it, God had a set point time when they would realize all of a sudden that this is it. You know, probably about the time that they go down into the Red Sea and try to follow Israel across, did they recognize that this is a power greater than them? Just like the liberals are going to recognize this is a power greater than them. Hillary still doesn't understand. She thinks that, yeah, that's right, Lord Dean. She thinks, the Lord says, I hit that nail on the head. She don't understand. She thinks she is in control of all this. She thinks with all of her little lies and all of her little deceits and all of her money and all of her power and all of her influence, she's going to get past God. Just like Pharaoh hardened his heart, so is Hillary's heart hardened. She will not let this thing go until she sees death grip. Until she sees the grip of death. She will not see it. That is the grip of death of everything that she owns, of everything that she believes, of everything that she is about. And God is with this same thing. While He's going to rip the hope right out of her heart, with this He's going to rip the hope out of the heart of every liberal across this land. There is 49% of the people of this land. Now listen to these statistics, okay? 49% of the people of this land is drawing some kind of a government benefit. 49%. You can check that up.
No.
Now listen to this. Exactly half of the people of this country are liberal. Almost exactly half. That's kind of funny how that lines up with that statistic, isn't it? 49% drawing government benefits. Now, I'm not saying everybody's on welfare. Okay, I'm just saying some kind of benefit 49% of people are getting. Obviously, some of those are conservative, people that really need it. Most of those, I would say, probably over 40% of that are liberals who do not need it. They're just like in the last election, some guy came on and says, the heck with it. I'm just going to go and see what kind of freebies they got for me. You know? And not funny. I know, just not funny. But anyway, and this is what I'm saying. 49%. That's 150 million people. There's over 300 million people in this country. 150 million is taking some kind of a free thing from the government. 150 million. That's going to leave the other half in slavery, just like it did in the day of Israel. You let it go long enough, and they'll set taskmasters over us. Taskmasters over us. And they'll send in government soldiers, and they'll make sure that you work your 16-hour day, just like they did in the day of Egypt. And when you refuse, they'll take away your straw, and they say, go find your own straw, but the tally of bricks may be exactly the same. It will be exactly the same. You will keep giving if it has to be your blood that you give. That's what they would say. But God, in His mercy, is delivering us out of this before it ever gets that far. Folks, what do you think communism is about? That's exactly where this is going. They want to bring in communism so they can have forced labor. You griping and complaining about mandatory overtime right now in your factory, you ain't seen nothing. You have not seen anything until you see an endless number. Sunday means nothing anymore. You don't get Sundays off. You work the same on Sunday as you did Monday through Friday and Saturday. Forced labor. That's where communism takes you. And it doesn't have any respect of person, whether you're sick, whether you're old, whether you're young. That's what taskmasters do. And when you get too old to work, you ever hear of euthanasia? You will. If this keeps going, you will. When you get too old to work, they'll simply take you out and put a bullet in your head, throw you in a ditch. That's what communism does. Look at what it did to Israel back in the 1940s. They still have the Holocaust. Hundreds of pictures where they took those folks out. Innocent. They did nothing. They took them out and they simply tried to annihilate all of the Jews. They simply tried to annihilate them. That's where this thing takes you. That's why people with half a brain are fighting so hard against this. That's why God is putting Hillary into, she is the weed that God is going to pluck. All right, the livestock. So we find that the livestock was their system, was their monetary system of that day. Now there were a few coins around, but they weren't in the hands of any peasants or any plain people. And if they were, there weren't very many. You know, wasn't something they'd want to spend. It would be like getting the whole diamond to one of us today. Okay. This plague was enough to cause them ruin in finance, but they were still determined to hang on to their system. Look at Detroit, Michigan. They're hanging on to that place. Liberals have ran that for the past 80 years, 80 plus years. And no matter they keep pumping money into it. It's a huge hole that they're pouring money down. Let me tell you something. If they simply would take a bulldozer and bulldoze Detroit, Michigan off of the face of the planet and stop wasting other things, they would literally have enough money to pay off the deficit of the United States in 10 years just from the money they would save from bulldozing that place over into the junk pile. And it's all set up under liberal rule. The rule of communism. That's what it does. Okay? And God hit this thing on the head. Is this a plague? You better believe it. You only need to go and look at Detroit. In Detroit City in the 1950s was almost 2 million people. Today it's approaching 500,000 under liberal rule. Past 80 years under liberal rule, it has done nothing but go down the drain. Okay, is this a plague? Yeah. Plague destroys. Plague eats up. Plague causes death and not life. That's what a plague does. And the Lord is hitting them where it hurts in their pocket. God is literally going to take away all of their finances through this plague of livestock. Accomplishing the same person. Their cows aren't dying, but their wallets are. Their system of money is busily disappearing down the drain. They're pouring it down a hole, and they will not get it back. To Egypt, this was all about the Jews where they're living. As much as the cows and the sheep and the goats and the horses were in that day. So it is with the liberals. We are their living. So it is with the liberals. We are their living today. And God is going to hit them in their pockets when Hillary is plucked. And even that's coming to pass a little bit right now. God is doing this. Just like He did with Egypt. Listen to this. And the Lord appointed a time. Just like this. He's going to appoint a time where they're going to realize it. You know what? There's a fog across the land today. They can't see this thing coming. They have no idea that this is that which God is delivering His people with once again. This is about the deliverance of God's people. Pharaoh Hillary, blind to the fact, hard heart. Her staff don't even know. It's not even updated on the emails. You know, the email is. Their staff asked her the other day, says, "Why is it that they have more information about your emails than we do?" You know, well, because Hillary she's lying. She don't want none of the facts to come out. That's what happens when you're guilty, man. You evade the issue when you're guilty. You don't freely talk about it, you evade it. Look at her testimony before the Congress the other day, man. Everything was evaded. Everything was stalled. Everything was change the what they're talking about. Change the issue. Try to avoid. Try to put blame somewhere else. When you're guilty, that's what you do, man. Obama's good at that. Liberals are good at that. It's not wrong for a liberal to lie, just like a Muslim. That's why they're so appeasing to the Muslim, because they have the same heart. That's why it is. Alrighty? But God is going to bring this thing to light. God is busily bringing a storm that's going to move this cloud of confusion across this land. Alrighty. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you again next time. Another great message. Next one is the sixth plague, which is the plague of boils. Are they boils? You should have seen that news commentator the other day. He was so abrupt, angry, that he looked like he had a boil on his buns and he was sitting on. Boy, was he mad. And it was all about those froggy emails of Hillary's. That's what it was all about. God bless. We'll see you next time. Crossing the Middle Ministry.